Hello strangers and story lovers, and welcome to my lair. So today I'm here to talk to you about what I've read in November. I can't believe it's already December, honestly. Time is just flying and I cannot keep track. But what I can keep track of is books, the books I've read. So let's start. First book I want to talk about, and hopefully relatively quickly because I have a review of it coming up in January, is Onyx Storm from Rebecca Yarros, third book of the Empyrean saga. I've done a full review of book 1, which is Fourth Wing, and book 2, which is Iron Flame. So if you're curious about what I thought about those, you can have a look at them on the channel. I will probably add the links in the description as well. And the full review of Onyx Storm is going to come out, I think, probably in January, early January. So watch out for that one. And because of that, I don't want to go into too much detail about my thoughts on Onyx Storm here. But just in case you don't feel like listening to me ramble about Onyx Storm for 2 hours, I will just have a quick recap of my thoughts on the book. I liked Onyx Storm a bit better than Iron Flame, which is not difficult considering I really disliked Iron Flame. Onyx Storm, I would say 2 stars. My feeling on Onyx Storm is that it tried to make some effort when it comes to some of the issues that I had with Iron Flame, so I did appreciate that. Because one massive problem that I personally had with Iron Flame was the fact that the side characters were completely nerfed to let Violet and Xaden feel more competent and more interesting and better and just like absolutely freaking perfect. Which to me is kind of the baseline definition for being a Marisu, is that you have to make every other person look incompetent in your story. Which to me is the case with Violet specifically and Xaden a little bit. Because they're basically the only 2 competent people in the whole book. They walk all over every authority figure that they see, if they disagree with them. You have a lot of scenes where secondary characters are made to fail explicitly so Violet can solve a problem. You have some scenes of teamwork where it's just kind of declared at the end that, oh, actually, Violet could have solved the whole situation on her own. Yes! Personally, I'm just realizing more and more that I do really like it when the side characters are important, because they really do make your main character more important as well, or more interesting. Because when you don't have any interesting side characters, how can you have cool dynamics with your main character and other, well, characters? You don't, and that's the problem, because everyone in this book is either a Violet cheerleader or an enemy. And if you don't think Violet is the coolest person ever, there is just something utterly wrong with you. And any character who doesn't think Violet is the coolest is usually an enemy, or they have something to hide, or they have a character arc waiting for them where they realize that, no, actually she is the coolest. They were wrong all along. So yeah, that just doesn't sit well with me. I really don't like this type of character. I think it's a lazy way to make your character feel more intelligent, more badass, more anything. I think it really makes the rest of the world suffer. And I don't know, I think it also makes your main character, your Marisu character, look flat and frustrating. Because for me, at the end, whenever Violet manages to do something that someone else struggles with, I don't think, wow, Violet is so cool. I just think, here we go again. We need to remind the reader that Violet is the only character worth anything in this book. And I just don't like it. I want to see real, fleshed out secondary characters that accomplish things and that are not just sitting in the background watching Violet do the thing and be like, yeah, you're the best, go on. Also, we have like so many side characters in this book as well, and all they just accomplish is tell Violet she's cool. What's the point? What is the point? But anyway, yeah, I'm already rambling about this because it really upsets me. But like I said, this book is kind of trying to rebalance everything a little bit. I don't think it solves that problem. We still have side characters being mostly incompetent, or just look at Violet solving everything and failing constantly to achieve the smallest things just so Violet can swoop in after them to solve the plot. But I do think there was an attempt in this book to give them a little bit more spotlight. There's even a whole scene where Riddoch, the comic relief, gets to, I want to say, put Violet in her place. He just kind of scolds her, and it's one of the rare situations where you can tell that Violet is supposed to be in the wrong and you're supposed to side with him, which is so freaking rare in this book, that Violet is ever wrong or that she's not on top of every discussion she's involved in. Most of the times when Violet is going to have an argument with someone, whether it's one of her friends, a family member, or an authority figure, she's always going to be completely on top. She's going to have all of the cool comebacks and she's going to have all the cool one-liners. Meanwhile, the other character is in front of them being like unable to find any argument to save their life, while Violet is just going to walk all over them and be like, and then you need to do exactly what I say. So I felt like this conversation with Riddoch, where she was in the wrong, he was having all the good argument, and he was the one getting in her face. That was so refreshing. That was so refreshing. More of that in book 5, please. Honestly, I would be so happy to have more of that in book 5. I will sing the praises of this scene forever, if that means that we get more of that in book 5, honestly. I also felt like the book in general was just more interesting than Iron Flame, because Iron Flame, I felt it was a little bit boring. At least I was bored reading it, but I wasn't really that bored when reading Onyx Storm. I was still frustrated, though my frustration was mostly because of the Mauritiusness. I already had problems with that word in my review, that's why I'm laughing. Most of the frustration I had came from the Mauritiusness and the side characters just being nothing but cheerleaders. But like I said, I felt like there was a little bit of an attempt made at rectifying that, so I really did appreciate it, even though I felt like it was still not enough. If we could stop having pointless secondary characters that are just there to be cheerleaders, or sometimes not even that, and if they could start, you know, being right and competent, that would be really cool. I don't even mind Violet being the most special girl ever. She's the main character, so she's absolutely allowed to be. I just want her to stop being so freakishly Mary-Sue. It would also be nice if she kind of started having consequences for when she starts like being in a general's face, like telling them they're idiots to their face in front of a lot of other army people, students, etc. Because it's just completely ridiculous every time, where she just humiliates generals in front of the rest of the army, and they're just like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm only a general and she's a student. I literally have no power over her. It's like the book is actively trying to avoid any obstacle for her, which is dumb, you know. When I'm reading a book, I want my characters to have obstacles. That's kind of the point. So the fact that she just solves every obstacle like this so easily is such a waste. Like, this book introduces a character, Halden, who is a prince, and there's a little bit of tension between him and Violet, and a little bit of tension between him and Xaden. And when I first read that, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. That sounds like a good obstacle on their path. Like, he is going to make their life a little bit more complicated. No, not at all. At least I didn't feel like he did. I just felt like whenever he was trying, either Violet or Xaden would just tell him, oh, but you suck. And he would just be like, what am I supposed to do? I'm only a prince. Yeah, I really do feel like it's a book that cancels its own stakes to make Violet and Xaden look cool, which it's a bit of a shame. For more detailed thoughts, very, very detailed, like I said, it's going to be 2 hours video. Oops. Stay tuned to the channel and watch the full review. It's going to be out in January. Next book. Next book is They Bloom at Night by Tran Tan Tran. I am so sorry for the pronunciation. I try. I liked it, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. I gave it 3 stars. It's a young adult LGBTQ horror novel that is basically about this town, coastal town, that has been taken over by a strange red algae. And things are becoming a little bit weird since this algae appeared in the area. people are disappearing, some animals are mutilated. And so our main character, who asks people to call her Noon, and I think her name is actually Nung or Nung, and because I don't know, I'll just kind of keep calling her Noon, because it seems that anyway she prefers to be called Noon than having her name being butchered, so I will do that because the name will be butchered otherwise. I do apologize for that. But yes, our main character Noon and her mother are kind of being asked by this local crime lord-ish to investigate on what is going on and to basically bring him the cause of all the weird things that are going on, because the situation is really bad for his business and he has kind of the town in a chokehold, including Noon and her mother. And so he orders his daughter Covey, I think that's how it's pronounced, to go with Noon and her mother to investigate in the situation, just so he can make sure he has someone that he trusts in this situation. And so they start investigating. Noon and Covey just kind of surprisingly start getting along really well. But it also seems that Noon's body is starting to change in weird ways. And when I say weird ways, it seems like her body is starting to be covered in rashes and her nails are dropping. And so there's a bit of a component of body horror in this one. There were actually a few scenes where I was like, no thank you. So it was a bit gruesome. It was, I don't know, I didn't find it really scary for a horror novel, but the body horror was on point. I did really appreciate it. The writing, gorgeous, very, very pretty. There were a few lines where I was, oh my god, that is beautiful. It reminded me a little bit of Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, which, not very surprising, because that's kind of the reason why I read They Bloom at Night to begin with, because I saw that C.G. Drews recommended it. So I just thought, oh well, if C.G. Drew likes this book, I might like it too. And I did. I thought it was a good story. I thought the book was like exceptionally well written. I did really like the body horror elements, even though sometimes I was just like, no. Like I was reading it on a bus a few times, and I don't want to know what my face looked like, but it was probably like, oh yeah, no, that was one of the book's strong points. There was a bit of an element of found family, but I don't think I got enough of it to really get attached to this found family, even though found family is one of my favorite tropes. But I don't know, I liked them. I thought they were cool. I liked all of the different characters composing the found family. But I don't know, I didn't really get attached to the found family itself, maybe because the book is quite short and so it didn't really have enough time for me to get that sunk in. But that being said, I didn't get really that into the book at all, which is why I only give it a 3, despite it being very interesting with beautiful writing. And of course, because there's, a little bit of body horror transformation type of thing in a young adult horror book, especially LGBTQ, there is a lot of questions of identity, etc. And I like that aspect of it. I thought it was really cool, but despite that, I'm only giving this a 3, because I don't know, I just didn't really get that into the book. And I was thinking about it a lot while reading and wondering how come I am not invested in this book, even though I cannot think of anything that's wrong with it. I like the characters are okay. I'm hyped about their relationship. I think the writing is beautiful. It's not scary, but it is horrifying in the body horror aspect of things. So I was really trying to put my finger on what it was that made it so I wasn't really able to get into it. And I think it might be that there's just a lot of inner monologues that are really pretty, but they don't necessarily happen when I would want them to happen. As in, they pretty much happen all the time in the story, but there are moments where you have kind of not an action scene, but like a mystery, an intriguing thing where I want to be in the moment. But because the character was always kind of thinking about, I don't know, fish facts or her past and memories and things like this, it made it so I couldn't really get into it, because there was always just this taking a step back, constantly taking a step back from the plot and from what was happening. I don't know if that's that, but that was the closest explanation I got as to why I couldn't really get that into it. I just felt like it was a bit too disconnected from what was going on. But that being said, I do recommend it. If it sounds like your cup of tea, if you don't think that you wouldn't mind this aspect of things, if you don't mind the detached tone and the fact that you will sometimes have memories or fish facts sometimes emerging in the middle of a plot moment. But yeah, the body horror is relatively gruesome. It's still YA, so I would expect that most people who are used to like intense horror are not going to be that into it. But if you do like a mild horror situation that will make you cringe a little bit in a good way, you know, at the gruesomeness of a situation, could also be for you. And if you also like it in YA that the horror elements are used to explore identity and things like this, I think that could also be interesting. And like I said, the writing is really great. I felt like there was also a lot of really cool moments that really showed you the rawness of the character's life. So a lot of interesting ways about life on a boat and how these characters were proceeding with like the fishing, because the main characters are shrimpers. I don't know if that's how it's called, but basically they are fishing out shrimps. And so you do have a little bit of elements about like fishing and how fish function and how the nets work on the boat and things like this. And you do have a few moments like this, and I thought, you know, I'm not necessarily passionate about fishing, but I still felt like it added a little bit of rawness, and it wasn't too common that I really was feeling like I was watching a fishing documentary. But I think the little moments where it was there, I thought it was interesting and gave a bit of more context on the main character's life. So I don't know, I think the book has a lot going on for it. So if you're curious, if you think it might be your cup of tea, I would say go for it. But yeah, just be aware that there is a little bit of a disconnect and distance with the elements of the plot because of all those memories and things. Next book, which I'm actually going to say next books because there are two from the same series. The series is Flesh and False Gods by Chloe Gong. And so obviously the books are Immortal, Longings and Vilest Things, which, yes, I've both devoured this month because I really enjoyed them, hence the 5 stars for both. So they're both romantasy books that are set in a universe where people can jump from body to body. Not all people, but some of them. And so in book 1, Immortal Longings, we have our main character Kala, who is a princess of the city of Sana. And she is joining an annual game where participants are hunting each other and can either kill or disqualify each other. And the last one standing gets a wish from the king, King Kasa. And Kala's plan is basically to use this moment to kill King Kasa because she is a banished princess. And she was banished because, I don't remember how many years ago, 10 maybe? She killed her own parents and was hence banished. And so she's planning that on her own at first, but then Prince August approaches her to try and make a deal with her that he will help her win the game, because he also wants her to get rid of King Kasa so he can become the king, because he thinks he can do a better job because King Kasa is a tyrant. So Kala agrees, and with his help she manages to do a decent job within the games. But the situation gets a little bit more complicated when another participant, Anton, is also doing really good, and they decide for one reason or another to ally themselves. And so they just become allies and they get closer, and the rest, as they say, is history. So that is book 1, and I'm not gonna say what book 2 is about because that would be spoiler territory. But yeah, the reason I like book 2 is pretty much similar to the reasons I like book 1. It's just the characters I really like the characters. Anton, such a vibe. I like the guy. Kala is really great. I like the creativity and the lore around all of the body jumping. I also felt like the romance, because this is a romantasy, so obviously there is a romance, is really, I really like the romance between the two main characters. I ship it. I'm really shipping it. They are both really cool, and their chemistry, yeah, I was there for it. I'm here for it. I really liked the body jumping aspect that went within the romance, because for that reason it can be a little bit difficult for the characters to really talk about what they like about each other. So for example, because one of the characters changes body almost every time they see each other. For example, Anton changes body every time he and Kala see each other, so it's a bit difficult from her perspective to explain what she likes about him. Because you know, when you're attracted to someone, you will maybe focus on some details, like maybe their eyes, or I don't know, the shape of their jaw or their hair or whatever. And that's often what you will see in a book, is like you can get those little details about something nice they like about their love interest's physique, like their hand, their shoulders, anything really. But in this book you can't really have that, because most of the time Anton is not in his own body. But then it's really sweet, because you have these moments where Kala just kind of explains that she recognizes his expressions. She also recognizes his eye color, because that's the one thing that follows a character in every body that they go in. So she kind of learns to recognize the nuances of his eyes. But not just that, she also does mention that a few times that he always has the same expressions, and that's also sometimes that she recognizes him, even though his eye color is not that original or special, I guess. And so yeah, I just thought that was a really nice and sweet detail that I really appreciated. Other than that, I don't know, I just felt I like the characters because they're very imperfect, all of them, but in a way that's is still very nice, and you still really like them, and they have good intentions, but they don't necessarily always do what's the best way to just go about them. I also liked some of the interactions and dynamics between secondary characters. August and Gallop's relationship, I really liked it. I thought it was like very moving that you have a character like August who's just so uninterested that it still feels like he really genuinely cares for Galope. So that was really nice and sweet. I also liked Kala's relationship with August. I thought that was pretty neat. Like, they're cousins, but you can tell that there's a certain distance, but respect, and also a weird sort of loyalty from her side. And they're both really cool and kind of suave and everything, so their dialogues are often quite nice. The one relationship that I was kind of hoping to see more of was Anton and August, because they are described as having been friends and having had a fallout, and now they're kind of enemies. And friends to enemies is such a good emotional dramatic trope, and so I wanted a bit more of their interactions, and I wanted to feel their former friendship more and the bitterness between them. And I don't know, I just felt like, for me at least, it was not enough. So I was a bit sad about that, because for the whole of book one I was just like, I need them to meet, and I really want them to have like this bitter conversation about how they used to be friends and everything. I didn't feel like the book delivered on that, but that doesn't matter. It's not what the book is about. It's just, of course, when I see one of my favorite tropes again and it's underutilized like this, I'm just like, no. But yeah, it doesn't change my appreciation of the book. I still really liked it. I would probably just have enjoyed it better if that had been in. That's it. That's all. Other than that, I felt like the plot twists at the end were really cool. Really, really cool. I was already aware of the plot twist at the end of book one, so while I do find it cool, it didn't blow my mind because I got the spoiler, which is fine. I don't necessarily mind spoilers. It doesn't stop me from appreciating the book, and I certainly did not stop me from appreciating this one. But I didn't know about the plot twist at the end of book two, and Yeah, that one blew my mind. I was really happy, and now I am so hyped to read the next one, which, if I'm not mistaken, comes out in spring 2026, book 3 of this saga. Yeah, absolutely, I will be there. Count me in. Like, after that plot twist, I want to know exactly what is going on. I needed to know what was going on before that plot twist happened. I already knew that I was gonna read book 3. After that ending, are you kidding me? Of course I'm reading book 3. Like, spring 2026 cannot come early enough, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for what I've read in November. I enjoyed my reading month. I did struggle a little bit with They Bloom at Night because of the reason I already explained, and oh my god, I really did struggle with Onyx Storm, because that one is huge and I was not really looking forward to reading it. So it made me a little bit slower in my reading, but hey, that's what it is. I still mostly enjoyed the books I've read. Even Onyx Storm, I had a good time reading it when I wasn't completely angry, because, you know, hate reads can be a fun experience as well, I think. Like, all the raging can be fun. And of course, Immortal, Longings, and Vilest things. Great reading moment. Which leads me to the book of the month for me, which will be Vilest Things, because I did like Immortal Longings. It's a bit difficult to say which one I preferred. I will just go with Vilest Things because I did like how it followed up from the plot twist at the end of book 1, and there were some elements, specifically the relationship between Anton and Carla, that I really did like. How the plot twist at the end of book 1 made it all evolve. I just like the drama. I felt like it was done in a really good and interesting way, so that's why I'm going to go with Vilest Things. And that is it for what I've read in November. I don't know if there will be a what I've read in December, because I'm starting to consider changing the formats on the channel a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what I'll do, but I'm wondering if I might just get back to doing reviews, but shorter ones. But we'll see. I might still continue the what I've read this month, or I might change completely the formats. I'm going to have a little bit of a think over the month of December and hopefully come back with new ideas in January. I don't know yet. It's gonna be interesting. It's going to be fun. But yes, I think that will be it for this video today. So thanks a lot for listening to my ramblings. I do really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, read good books, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, and continue to enjoy stories.